Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
More affordable housing options could soon be coming to San Diego. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The City Council has approved a package of housing reforms proposed by Mayor Todd Gloria. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the goal is to turbocharge home construction.
San Diego has a goal of building 108,000 new homes in the next 6 years. That's meant to match the city's population growth and rectify a severe housing shortage that's been decades in the making. Meeting those housing goals will require a massive and rapid increase in housing production. The mayor's Housing Action Package 2.0 makes changes to a local program called Complete Communities, which lets developers build taller and denser projects if they agree to rent a portion of their units below the market rate. Now, those below-market homes can be built in a separate project if certain conditions are met. Council President Sean Ela Rivera made amendments to the package after the council rejected it last month. He acknowledged the process has been messy.
I'm here to legislate, and I think it's important that we don't let concerns about a complicated meeting or a longer meeting get in the way of us trying to pass the best policy possible.
Opponents of the housing package say the changes were too generous to developers and that the Complete Communities program is adding too much density to their neighborhoods and shouldn't be expanded.
Residents throughout the city have now spent hours with 2 different council meetings, many of them discussing their reticence about the impacts that are already happening in their communities, let alone what this new version will bring.
The most ambitious component of the mayor's housing package was removed before it was presented to the city council. It would have allowed townhomes and small apartment buildings on sites that are zoned for single-family homes. Gloria has pledged to bring it back to the council after working with homeowner groups to try and win their support. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Well, we have had a little bit of wind out there, but it was a very weak Santa Ana wind event, and things are decreasing for us as we get deeper into the night and tomorrow as well, with the winds diminishing. A little chilly for some. Ramona 36 degrees, Borrego Springs 39, 31 up at Mount Laguna. And we'll be into the low 40s in places like San Diego later on tonight. Big pattern change coming, though, beginning on Sunday to our north, but by the early to mid part of the week, we'll begin to see some showers return. We'll talk about this in just a bit.
A Camp Pendleton Marine was killed in an amphibious combat vehicle rollover. The rollover happened around 6 o'clock last night. 14 other Marines were sent to area hospitals. The name of the Marine who died is being withheld until their family is notified. The crash is under investigation. Since 2010, more than 125 service members have been killed in non-combatant tactical vehicle accidents. From states to the highest court in the land, the battle over abortion laws is intensifying as the 2024 presidential election draws closer. Now justices say they'll consider the future of a commonly used abortion drug that could have widespread ramifications even in states where abortion is still legal. Laura Aguirre has more.
I saw the news as soon as it broke, and my jaw just dropped.
The news that the U.S. Supreme Court will consider whether to restrict the use of mifepristone, a widely used abortion pill used in combination with another drug as one of the most common abortion methods in the country. The mifepristone dispute centers on the FDA's authority to regulate the medication, first approved in 2000. For Allie Phillips, a Democrat running for a Tennessee House seat, the issue is personal.
We were pregnant in November last year. She was deemed incompatible with life outside the womb and inside the womb. The longer I stayed pregnant, the worse my daughter's body was going to get and the higher risk my health was going to become.
Due to Tennessee's near total ban on abortions, Phillips traveled out of state for her procedure, as did Texas resident Kate Cox this week, after the Texas Supreme Court blocked a lower court's ruling granting Cox the right to a medical exceptions abortion. Arizona's Supreme Court is considering whether to uphold their current ban after 15 weeks, signed into law in 2022, or return to a near total ban that dates back to 1864. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to make their mifepristone ruling by next July, just months before the 2024 presidential election.
There's a small string of hope that these Supreme Court justices will understand that the majority of Americans need and want access to this medication and just abortion care in general.
I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
San Diego County will invest $2 million into small local nonprofits addressing community inequalities. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson spoke about the new program with the director of the Office of Equity and Racial Justice, Andrew Strong.
You know, most of our small nonprofits tend to be coming from our BIPOC communities.
The county defines small as fewer than 5 employees and an operating budget of less than $500,000.
A lot of times these folks may have full-time jobs and they're also running a nonprofit and they're doing it pretty much for free. And it means so much for the county to understand that we have a social responsibility to invest in those nonprofits, to invest in those people who have the lived experience, they have the deep, profound knowledge of why this work needs to happen.
Strong says these organizations have historically been edged out of county funding by larger nonprofits, partly because they can't compete with the numbers impacted, and partly because they don't have the same time or resources to navigate all the red tape. Strong says they're working to make this application process as accessible as possible.
We actually had a nonprofit called us, and the woman who runs the nonprofit is actually homeless themselves, and she was asking if she could have could she have a paper application because she didn't have access to the internet.
They're also providing coaching, and unlike traditional contracts, the county will share the responsibility of meeting the grant outcomes. Applications will close on January 26th. The first cohort of 10 recipients will be announced in March. Each organization will receive $100,000. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
Chula Vista is now planning to reopen Harborside Park. As KPBS reporter Corey Suzuki tells us, the City Council's decision comes after a long debate over whether to use the land for affordable housing.
Over the last year, Harborside Park in Chula Vista has been at the center of citywide debates over housing, homelessness, and environmental justice. City leaders first closed the park temporarily last August. They evicted dozens of unhoused residents who had taken shelter there, many of them during the pandemic. Officials argued the encampment was creating a public safety issue. Earlier this year, though, the council made the surprise decision to look at using the land for housing, potentially closing Harborside for good, which led to a passionate response from residents.
My nephews learned how to skateboard there when they were little. They live on the east side of Chula Vista and by Hilltop. And I know they used to go there. They learned how to skateboard there. They learned a lot of things. And it's sad to think that buildings would go up there in a park for the children.
There were multiple rallies, dozens of people speaking out at public meetings, all urging city leaders to change course and keep the park for the neighborhood. Now, the City Council has agreed to move in that direction. Deputy Mayor Jose Preciado says he will support reopening, but says it could create another complicated situation.
Everyone, when you open a park, has access to that park. We hope that everyone respects the rules and regulations connected to the park. But if somebody chooses to habitate in the park, we really are not able to move them.
The council could still reverse its decision at a later date. Still, many residents celebrated.
Save our park!
Here's Leticia Lares, who organized marches in support of reopening.
I'm feeling really happy. I'm feeling happy. And yes, I'm not going to trust 100%, but yes, I'm really happy.
Officials say it will take at least 8 months to fully reopen Harborside. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council recently voted to create new community parking districts in Kearny, Mesa, and San Ysidro. Parking districts are the precursor to installing meters, which can help fund neighborhood improvement projects. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says as San Diego looks for new ways to pay for its crumbling infrastructure, charging for street parking could become the new normal.
I think when people think of a parking district, they literally think just parking.
I'm standing with City Council member Kent Lee on Convoy Street in Kearny, Mesa. It's a wide arterial road filled with car dealerships and strip malls that feature some of the best Asian restaurants in San Diego. Lee says the neighborhood is growing and the status quo of everyone getting around by car is unsustainable.
It's going to be more important for us to think about how people get around. So, it's everything from things like bus shelters to, if we have bike facilities, crosswalks that are designed to be safer for pedestrians to be able to get across.
All those improvements need funding, and the new parking district may be able to help. There aren't any immediate plans for parking meters in Kearny Mesa, but Lee's office is talking about them with local businesses as a way to increase turnover in those high-demand parking spots. And a portion of the revenue from parking meters can be reinvested in the neighborhood.
And it just seems natural for an area where folks are looking to travel from a restaurant that they're visiting to a spot for dessert to a place to karaoke at the end of the night. This is sort of that natural place where having different options on how you can get around would be really valuable. And I think at the end of the day, what a parking district will offer us the opportunity to do is to explore all of these options to make this a more, friendly space for pedestrians, for those who are traveling here by vehicle, but really also for all the businesses who, enjoy that kind of traffic.
Changes are happening in San Diego's parking districts. The one in Pacific Beach was created in 2005, but only recently did it decide to add meters to the neighborhood. Those meters are helping fund an on-demand shuttle that can take people from the trolley to the beach.
It goes beyond beautification. You're talking about pedestrian safety. You're talking about bicycle safety. And people will not use those modes unless it's safe to do so.
Jerry Trussell is executive director of the Uptown Community Parking District, which includes Bankers Hill, Mission Hills, and Hillcrest. She says the district used to be more focused on increasing the supply of parking. Nowadays, it's also embracing projects that reduce the demand for parking by making streets more walkable and bikeable.
We put in 300 bike racks, trash cans, acorn lighting, some of the traffic calming planters and things of that nature.
Trussell says it used to be a lot harder to get city approval for this kind of spending. Parking districts built up millions of dollars in reserves that the city wouldn't let them spend on the things they wanted. Then Mayor Todd Gloria switched oversight of the parking districts to a new city department.
The mayor has created mobility and sustainability, and that department is very forward-thinking. They're looking at going, okay, we need lights. So street lighting was approved, things of that nature.
I always make the observation I'd rather talk about taxes than parking because it's a very personal issue. People interface with it on a daily basis.
Mayor Gloria says the city's two new parking districts are a response to neighborhood-level concerns. But just how big will San Diego go on parking meters? Could they be used to fund larger projects like new bus and trolley lines? The city is developing a mobility master plan. It mentions parking districts as a way to help reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions.
What that means globally for the city going forward, it kind of remains to be seen. My administration wants to empower communities that want to address this issue head on and improve their quality of life and gain those amenities that they think will make their neighborhoods work better.
Convoy's what it is today because, to be frank, for generations, this was not a desired place to be.
Back on Convoy Street, Councilmember Kent Lee says the neighborhood has outgrown its industrial design. It needs a facelift, and when government resources are scarce, a parking district can help pay for upgrades that could otherwise take decades to fund.
It's going to help the many small businesses, a lot of them who are immigrant, culturally really diverse. And then it's really going to help us as a region to be able to share this as a destination, not just for those in San Diego, but for anyone who's visiting.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego has been awarded $2.25 million to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. The grant is part of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Mayor Todd Gloria says the money will allow the city to develop an accessible pedestrian connections north of Interstate 8. The money will also help fund the city's bike master plan. The Federal Reserve has made its final call on interest rates in 2023 and offered some clues about where they see the U.S. economy headed in 2024. Karen Kaifa has a look at what consumers need to know now and in the new year.
For a third straight meeting, the U.S. Federal Reserve opting to hold interest rates steady. The Fed had fresh inflation data from both the consumer and the producer side to consider, and it is clear that going into 2024, they'll have to continue to walk that fine line between policy that cautiously slows hiring and spending, but doesn't completely stall it.
The U.S. Federal Reserve charting a steady course amid promising economic data heading into 2024.
Today, we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Given how far we have come, along with the uncertainties and risks that we face, the committee is proceeding carefully.
Fresh data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics showed inflation continued to cool year over year in November. That means price hikes have slowed at the grocery store and elsewhere, and households have finally seen some relief. But prices remain higher than pre-pandemic levels. And Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, says that leaves consumer reaction mixed.
Lots of things that people buy, from food to rent to gasoline are up from where they were a few years ago. So I think people are still uncomfortable with that, still trying to digest that.
Still, the resilient economy with a steady jobs market and wage growth outpacing inflation has investors feeling bullish about 2024.
They expect the economy to continue to grow to avoid an economic downturn, and they're starting to anticipate interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, not next month, but by middle of next year.
Despite the Fed's plan to keep interest rates higher for longer, there is hope that the Fed's benchmark rate, which is currently at a 22-year high, may soon come down earlier than anticipated.
As for how this decision impacts consumers, it's not a lot right now. Consumers will still feel the impact of the previous 11 rate hikes since March of 2022 as they tackle credit card interest payments and seek car loans and mortgages. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
More and more restaurants are going cashless. Some owners say it's due in part to a rise in break-ins and theft. But some restaurants in downtown Sacramento have also been seeing an increase in counterfeit bills. Ashley Sharp reports.
What up, guys? Money,
A fiery message from the owner of Maya Restaurant Sacramento, lighting up a handful of what he says are bad bills and calling out fake customers.
I'm just letting you guys know to all the restaurant owners out there, bar owners, there's people going around dining at your restaurant, leaving fake $100 bills on the table. Be careful, have your service be on point.
Danny Maya says the apparent thieves were out the door before staff could check the cash, not confirming if his restaurant will make the leap to go cashless, but some downtown Sacramento staples already have.
It was always a spike during the holiday season. You started to see this, monopoly money coming into the restaurant, and it was a big issue.
Regina Guyton in September gave new life to Sacramento's iconic Jim Denny's Diner.
3 days after we opened, somebody broke in through a side window and pulled the cash register.
Now completely cashless for two reasons: safety and the high cost of back-to-back burglaries.
Since we stopped taking cash, we have not had a single break-in.
In Doco, popular spots like Polanco Cantina, Tipsy Putt, and Tom's Watch Bar have all ditched the dollar bill. Whether it's to make break-ins less tempting or to stop the fake cash flow, Guyton says downtown businesses have to make tough calls.
The state that our city is in, as far as the ability to get adequate protection for small businesses, it's not available right now.
Fed up, it's a heated warning.
Don't come to our businesses and eat for free and leave fake money.
From those buckling down on bad business.
Ashley Sharp with that report. Police recommend businesses use UV lights or tester pens to verify the cash isn't counterfeit. Authorities also say businesses should report any counterfeit bills so investigators can track them. The CDC deems it an urgent global public health threat. Antimicrobial resistance can make treating infections hard, sometimes even impossible. Mandy Gaither has more on the dangers of antibiotic overuse and what you can do to keep you and your family safe.
Antibiotics. They're some of the most powerful and important drugs out there, serving as a critical line of defense, along with antifungals in the treatment of routine infections and chronic diseases.
These drugs save lives every single day.
But anytime we use antibiotics, they can cause what's called antimicrobial resistance, meaning germs develop the ability to resist or defeat the drugs designed to kill them, says Michael Craig with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
When the germs do become resistant, the infections that they cause will become difficult and sometimes impossible to treat.
In the U.S., more than 2.8 million antimicrobial resistant infections happen each year, killing more than 35,000 people, according to the CDC's 2019 Antibiotic Resistance Threat Report.
This is why we should only use antibiotics when they are necessary. If we don't, these life-saving medicines may not work for future generations.
To protect against this resistance, Craig says to always take medication exactly as prescribed. Don't share medication with others or save the medicine for later, and safely discard leftover pills.
It's important to remember that we can prevent infections from happening in the first place. By practicing good hygiene like hand washing and keeping your cuts covered and clean, you can keep yourself and your family safe from infections.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
It's been a little breezy out there, but the winds are diminishing, and we're going to turn warmer after a chilly night. Thursday begins the warming trend. Looking ahead to next week, though, things will get a lot more active for us with the return of some showers and even a period of rain. Tonight, though, chilly weather. Clear skies, lighter winds compared to last night. We're 43 for our low in the city. Many of you to the east are going to be into the 30s, though. And tomorrow, a pretty decent day. After that somewhat chilly start, we're going to bounce back into the 70s in most areas. A little warmer into El Cajon. Borrego Springs 70, but up into the mountains there. Mount Laguna 45 degrees. A little cool there. Looking way down the line, after a quiet but warmer weekend, you can see a big zone of low pressure offshore. And this is going to be slowly moving in our direction. Here we go through Sunday into Monday. Pressing pause at Monday morning at around 6 a.m. We'll begin to see some rain expand into northern California. A little snow up there into the Sierra. That's good news as well. And eventually, as we get into Tuesday, we'll begin to see a better chance for some rain showers here in far southern California. So it's going to be a series of storms, initially primarily impacting northern California, but later into the week and into midweek next week even, we'll begin to see a better shot for rain locally. And most of the high elevation snow will be up into places like the Sierra off to our north. So as we look at the coastal forecast, you can see we do begin to see a bit of rain on Monday, probably increasing on Tuesday. But a warming trend, a great weekend, and then we begin to cool down, falling into the 60s with the clouds and the arrival of some of those rain showers beginning on Monday. Inland areas here, we're also rising up to near 80 on Saturday. Great weekend, clouds thicken Sunday, and a little rain Monday. We'll continue with that theme Tuesday. You can see a 10-degree drop from Saturday to the cooler, wetter Monday. Into the mountains we go. Here we have the temperatures hovering mid-40s and near 50 degrees, turning cloudier Monday. We may need to wait one more day before the rain arrives there. And into the deserts, a similar story. Temperatures mid-70s, clouds thicken Monday, and then a better chance for rain rolls in on Tuesday across more of the area. For AccuWeather and KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish.
The fall semester ended today for some community college students aboard the USS Midway. KPBS education reporter MG Perez shows us how the decommissioned aircraft carrier in San Diego Bay served as their classroom for lessons in welding.
The sparks are flying in anticipation of a bright future for these student welders from the San Diego College of Continuing Education. There are 8 of them who qualified to be part of a pilot program to preserve and enhance the retired USS Midway. Andrea Jarvis is one of them.
It's just me and the rod or me and the gun, and it's just me making art, you know, building things, creating things, fusing things together.
Jarvis is about a year into her welding education with the San Diego Community College, following in the footsteps of her late father and providing for her 2 children, Azalea and Brantley, as a single mom. She has has hopes of becoming a professional welder on a pipeline or maybe working on the chassis of race cars.
Well, it's a passion for me, it's a constantly ever-going trade, and I really like working with metal. It's like sewing with fire,
This fall, students have had 3 days of campus classroom instruction each week and then come aboard the Midway on Wednesdays for 6 hours of real work. The program was initiated by the Midway's management. It's considered a win-win for the aging ship with ongoing repair needs.
The benefit for the students being on the Midway is they're exposed to an environment that we can't replicate in the lab. They have to work on projects that we can't simulate in an environment that allows them real-world hands-on training.
Long term, get done with this class, get on to diving school, and then hop in the lake.
24-year-old Jake Hughes wants a career welding underwater. He is also looking to his family's legacy for inspiration.
My grandfather was an electrician. My father did construction. I was raised around a lot of tools, so I like to think that I'm kind of mixing the two right now. Both of them aren't with us anymore, but I like to think that they'd approve.
The pilot program here on the Midway has been so successful, it will continue into the new year. The initial cohort of 8 students will be expanded to 14 starting in January. Andrea Jarvis is already a success with her kids.
My kids are so proud. They go to school and they're like, hey, my mommy's a welder.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, a Democratic strategist offers her take on what Democrats might concede on border security to get aid to Ukraine passed. And KPBS Midday Edition is getting ready for the weekend with a wrap-up of all of the best local arts and culture events. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.